Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today's going to be a great day because we are facing a difficult topic. And even those challenging days can be phenomenally great because those are the topics and those learning opportunities that we really get a chance to grow and to be even greater versions of ourselves, to step into the miraculous person that we are. So today's going to be a great day. We're talking today about feeling like a fraud. And, this topic came up for me again last week when I was meeting a new patient, and she stepped into the office and said, "Oh my gosh, I feel like a complete fraud." And for all of you out there who are practicing dentistry, who are business owners, who are in healthcare professions serving, who are leading and guiding and supporting men and women in their lives, I know you know what this is like when you create a safe space for someone and they just open up to you. And there's something about dentistry. It's the vulnerability. You really have to be extremely vulnerable to allow someone into your mouth. It's the one sacred space that nobody gets to be a part of outside of, very intimate partners. And so I think it creates this relationship of just vulnerability and security and safety all at once. So many patients share a lot of very personal things with us. And I feel so honored and so humbled by it every single time. So I love bringing these stories to you. But what I recognized in the moment is that this is a reflection of what so many of us feel. When patients share with me these vulnerable sides of them, I see myself in them. And so when she said to me, "Dr. Mac, I feel like a fraud," did I hear that loud and clear, because I felt like that so many times in my life. So the story is just that this incredible woman who is a coach. She's a health and wellness coach. She's guiding other men and women to find health and wellness in their lives, in their bodies, with nutrition and exercise and mindset. And she said, here I am telling people how to better take care of their bodies, and my mouth is a mess. And I know that really intimate association and connection with the systemic health of taking care of your mouth affecting your rest of your body. And so this whole time I feel like a fraud, because if they only knew how bad my mouth was, they'd see me for who I really am, which is a complete fraud. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hear you. I hear you. How many very high achieving, driven, successful, incredibly giving, serving women in business and in healthcare do this to ourselves every day. And not just women, men as well. Questioning, do I really belong in this room? And it reminded me of my college graduation. I felt so strongly after graduating from college with a degree in psychology and a minor in sculpture that I didn't belong, that I didn't deserve the graduation ceremony, that I didn't even go. So if you're looking at me thinking, oh my gosh, she's so confident all the time, please recognize imposter syndrome is something I have lived with, my loves, my whole life. I know what that feels like. I didn't even attend my college graduation because I felt like I was a fraud. Here I was getting an extremely high achievement at my college. I had a really great GPA. I was getting some great accolades, and I felt like I didn't even deserve it. And how many of us do that to ourselves all the time? So when I saw this patient the other day, I thought, what a great example to bring to my audience on the podcast. Because when we take ourselves out of the situation, when we take our own emotions that are wrapped up in this very personal feeling, in this belief system that we've been strengthening and harnessing and living our entire lives. When we take ourselves outside of that, we can see it for what it truly is. Because when I looked at my patient, who I saw was a very influential, effective, supportive, very needed person in our community. Here she's making huge changes in other people's lives. By being a health and wellness coach, she is supporting men and women to fulfill their dreams, giving them education and support all along the way. And by believing that imposter syndrome, inner bully language, she is holding herself back from impacting more people, for doing more good in the world. I go back to what I always say at the end of every episode is, when you feel good, you can do good. And isn't that the truth? I mean, here is a great example of someone who, if she just felt great about herself, she could do even more good for the men and women who she's supporting, for her clients and for the greater community. But when she's feeling like an imposter, like a fraud, she's holding herself back. So if you find yourself feeling this way, if this is sounding all kinds of alarms in your own head and you think, wow, I feel like that all the time. I feel like if everyone knew who I really was, I would be revealed for who I really am, which is a complete imposter. If you've heard that language in your head, number one, please know you're not alone. You are in good company with Michelle Obama and Natalie Portman and Neil Gaiman, all extremely accomplished, incredible human beings who've made enormous changes in this world, who have all struggled with imposter syndrome. And what I think is that people who struggle with this idea of feeling like a fraud are actually extremely insightful and caring and reflective, huge superpowers in being great leaders, huge superpowers in seeing personal growth, being able to take a step back and say, wow, there are some imperfections here. There are some areas I'd like to improve on. That's a superpower. That's a strength. Not a weakness. It's that inner bully, the inner negative self-talk that's limiting you, not the recognition of areas where you can grow. I mean, I applauded my patient. Good for you for recognizing how important your oral health is in terms of the rest of your body. Not just that, but this makes her an even better coach because she can relate to her patients. If there's one area of your health and wellness that you've been neglecting for a while, man, she's lived it. So she knows how that feels. That makes her, in my regard, an excellent health and wellness coach because she can relate, because she knows what that feels like. That makes her a better health and wellness coach than the one who has it all down, who has perfect health in all aspects of their bodies and never had a challenge. How can I relate to that wellness coach? But man, she is an expert in her field because she's lived it. So see how we can, when we step outside of the emotions and the pain and the negative inner bully, we can see the truth for what it is. We can see her situation wholly differently. And that, my friends, is how I suggest you go about facing imposter syndrome. So the first step is acknowledging it when you feel it. Yes, that's that inner voice again, doubting my worthiness, doubting my deservancy, doubting my ability. That's what it is, recognizing it, and then asking yourself the very important question, is it true? Now, the challenge with imposter syndrome and with feeling like a fraud, if you've practiced this for decades, maybe you even grew up with this belief system in your household, it's very hard to not say, yeah, it's true. It's very hard because what we do is, as we feed ourselves this negative self-talk, as we believe it more and more, and it really is just a thought we keep rehashing and thinking over and over again. That's all a belief is. But every time we do, we buy into it more and more and more. And when we do so, when we create this really strong belief system inside of us, even if it's a negative one, we start finding evidence of it all over. So when I say, is it true? You might say, yeah, here's 10 reasons why it's true, why I really am a fraud. Look, my patient had a reason that was very true in her mind. I have terrible teeth. Therefore, I'm a fraud in health and wellness. To her, that made sense. That is real, that is true, and she's a fraud. So sometimes when you ask yourself that question, you might hear that very strong evidence, and you might drown out all the other evidence. Take, for example, the reason why I didn't even attend my college graduation. I had a million reasons in my head. I can't even remember what they were, but I couldn't see that, Tarryn, you got incredible grades. You completed all your exams. Of course you deserve to stand up at graduation. Of course you do, because you completed everything and all the requirements and beyond that. And look at all these extra awards you were given. Of course you're one of the most deserving people at that graduation ceremony. But when you're entrenched in it, when you're telling yourself that belief of I'm not worthy, it's hard to see the evidence of it. So then the second part of that question, after asking yourself, is it true, is what if the complete opposite were true? Where is the evidence for the complete opposite? So in my patient's example, I am the most worthy health and wellness coach. Just say it out loud. Or write it down if you feel too uncomfortable saying it out loud. Or to that younger me, I wish I could have told her, Tarryn, just say, I am the most deserving of attending that graduation ceremony. And then where is the evidence of that in your life? What if the complete opposite were true? Just try it on. What I love about this practice is it allows you to see that we are not our thoughts. Just because you have a thought does not mean it has to be true. So when you challenge yourself with the exact opposite, you can see that thoughts are just happening in our heads all the time. They're just habitual. They're just stories that we've attached to ourselves over and over and over again, and they don't have to be true. We can give ourselves the exact opposite and try that on and see, could the exact opposite be true? And if the exact opposite could be true, can you imagine there is a litany of other truths in between those two? Maybe it falls somewhere in the middle, but it does not mean that you are a fraud. That's just a story you're telling yourself. Another question I like to ask myself every time one of these imposter syndrome thoughts comes along, and they still do, even though I practice all the time and I tell myself all the good things and I do all the personal empowerment practices and tactics that I share on this podcast. Every now and then I'll still have a little whisper, ooh, if only they knew, then they'd see that I was actually a fraud. When that comes in, another great question to ask yourself is, how is this negative thought serving me? Now this is a challenge. This takes true integrity and honesty with yourself in order to answer. And not just that, but it takes quiet. It takes drowning out the external stimulus. It takes giving yourself a heartbeat of a break from your kids, from your family, from your iPhone, from work, from should-dos, to-dos, have-dos, expectations. It takes just taking a minute and reflecting and seeing, how has this negative feeling about myself served me? Because if it has perpetuated for a while and you've been telling yourself for a while, I'm a fraud, I'm a fraud, I'm a fraud, I promise you there's somewhere in there that you're getting some benefit. Ugh. Mic drop. That's scary. But it's true. And there's power in finding it. Because when you can find it, you can find a different source for fulfilling it. All right, what on earth are you talking about, Tarryn? Let me explain. Perhaps by having this feeling of, man, I'm a fraud. Everyone's going to catch me out. I'm waiting for the day when someone sees me for who I really am. I've cheated the system all this time. Is that, number one, gaining you love and connection? Are you giving this talk to your friends and finding support? Are you saying, guys, I am a fraud. I don't feel right. People are paying me money for this, and if they only knew. Are you receiving love and connection from your friends? or even from yourself. Because perhaps that's what you need. Maybe that's insight into what you are missing. And is there a way to get love and connection that doesn't beat yourself up with your inner bully? So instead of getting that support from friends every time you complain about it, maybe you recognize and feel the love from your friends for the good things in your life. When your friend says to you, man, you look great today, take that in. Feel that love and connection. When your mom says to you, I really love being able to chat with you. I really love sharing time with you. Feel that love and connection. Let that be the way you fill yourself up. Recognize that that's what you need, or even ask for it. You know what? I need some love and connection. I need some time with my friends. But don't find it from this negative self-talk. Find it from a place of empowerment and deservency. Or perhaps your imposter syndrome is giving you permission not to get up in the morning. Man, I feel so bad about myself. If everybody knew this about me, they'd realize I was a fraud. I'm just going to stay in bed. I'm just going to self-soothe. I'm just going to chill out to Netflix to escape. Even just recognizing that shows you, hey, wait a minute, maybe I need rest. I'm using this imposter syndrome to get something to make me feel good. What I need is rest. I'm going to sleep in intentionally. I'm going to take a nap. My body is talking to me and saying, Tarryn, you need rest. So what is this negative self-talk, this fraud, feeling like a fraud belief system actually serving for you? And can you find it in a more beneficial, more sustainable way that makes you feel good and not bad about yourself? Remember, the goal is feeling good. This is the business of happiness, not the business of feeling like a fraud. We're trying to turn this around so that we can be better for other people. And that is, my friend, the last question I have for you. What could you do? What would you do in your life if you didn't have this negative feeling about yourself? If you didn't feel like a fraud, what would you do differently? And I actually asked this of my patient last week. So when we were talking about straightening her teeth and she revealed this identity crisis of hers where she felt like a fraud because of her teeth, I said to her, please tell me, what would you do differently if you didn't have this feeling that you were a fraud? And she closed her eyes and she thought about it for a minute and she said, oh, I would be so much more courageous and supportive of my clients. In fact, there's this whole program I've been wanting to roll out, and I've just been holding back because I've been worried about how people would receive it. And I just know that this program would be so powerful if I felt great about it, if I actually got up and did the work. I thought, that's it. That's it. That's going to be the motivation for her to straighten her teeth, because she's tapped into what it would feel like if she didn't have this feeling of being a fraud. And we know it's not about her teeth. We know it's just a story she's been telling herself all this time. We know she's not a fraud. We can see that. But man, can't you relate to that? Can't you relate to that? We find one little chink in the armor, one little piece of evidence where maybe we slipped up, where we weren't perfect. And we know from the outside, there's no such thing. Nobody's perfect. Natalie Portman's not perfect. Michelle Obama's not perfect. There is nobody perfect, but it doesn't make them any less worthy of standing in that room and being the brilliant, incredible women that they are. And the same is true for you. The same is true for you. You deserve to be constantly growing and serving your community. You deserve to be loved. You deserve everything that you've worked for. All the evidence is there. And there is no panel of judges out there. There is no lining up of experts who are now going to judge you and evaluate you. It's all within you and what you bring to your family, to your patients, to your team, to your community. So I'll share with you now that we understand the hypocrisy of feeling like a fraud, and also that you're not alone. So many of us struggle with this, and that being imperfect is being a human being, and that we can't grow if we don't have imperfections, and that once you know better, you can do better, and that is always where we're striving. So when this happens, I have some mantras for you that you can take with you. Mantras help me so much. Mantras I love because that old negative self-talk was just a habit that you just thought over and over and over again. So when you have that negative thought pattern, flip it around. Let's start with some positive thought patterns. Let's move from what you used to say to yourself to a new mantra that can now start supporting a new belief system of empowerment for yourself so that you can be a better person for others. So here we go. When you hear yourself saying, "What if I'm not good enough?" Oh man, I felt that one so many times. What if I'm not good enough? I'm about to do this big thing. I'm about to stand in a new position. I'm about to take on a new role. What if I'm not good enough? Oh, I felt that so many times in my career when I was finally a practicing orthodontist. What if I'm not good enough? Here I am charging for my services, but what if I'm not good enough? Next thing, I was hiring team members and asking them to put their faith in me as their boss, but what if I'm not good enough? Or all of you moms who know what that feels like. I'm about to step into motherhood, or be a mother of 3 now, or 4. I'm about to take on this new expanded version of myself, but what if I'm not good enough? And when you hear that negative question, that negative self-talk, turn it around. I deserve to be in this space. That's it. Simple. And at first, when you put it on and you try it on like a new sweater, it's a little itchy, scratchy. It feels uncomfortable because we're not used to speaking to ourselves that way. We're not used to saying these positive mantras to ourselves. So when you try it on, just recognize it's a new itchy sweater. But put it on anyways. I deserve to be in this space. The more you say it, the more you think it, the more you believe it, the more you stand in it, and the better you will be for others. I promise. If you hear yourself say, "What if someone knew the real me?" Isn't that a great imposter syndrome question? What if she knew the real me? I'm falling in love, but man, what if she knew the real me? That self-doubt, that questioning, that fear, and that's really all it is. When you hear yourself, what if they knew the real me? I want you to turn it around and say, I know the real me. And I love her for all her imperfections. And I am worthy of the good that is happening to me. Feel that. I am worthy of all the good that is happening to me. I know the real me, and I am worthy of all the good that is happening to me. And another thought pattern that so many of us feel, so many driven, high-achieving men and women feel, is people will think I'm not good enough. Especially in this day and age where we get so much information from social media, from the internet, and so many people's opinions. And we see a lot of negative feedback, and we attach ourselves to the negative feedback always. Am I right? We tend to brush off all the positive ones and just focus on those few little negative ones. And when you feel yourself saying, people will think I'm not good enough, what I'd love for you to practice saying is, I am enough. I am exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm going to leave you with that today. I'm going to leave you with those 3 mantras. And I'm going to let you know that the truth is you are enough. And the fascinating thing about people who challenge themselves with feeling like a fraud or feeling like imposters are actually the ones who are trying to do better. If you felt imposter syndrome, I've got news for you. You are the most deserving of where you are because you've been questioning yourself and challenging yourself to grow. The only thing that's been holding you back has been this negative perception of yourself. But really, you are invested in being better, in growing better, in educating yourself more, in being the best that you can be. That's the sign. It's almost like if you've had imposter syndrome, then you are the most deserving to be where you are. You're not alone, my friends, and you deserve all the good that's happening to you. And remember, when you feel good, when you feel great about yourself, when you can step into that confidence and say, you know what, I am the best person for this. I am the most deserving of this position, of this accolade, of this opportunity. That's when you can actually be better for others. Because when you feel good, that's when you can do good.